Hello everybody, Dylan Stevens, Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist. In today's video, I wanted to discuss how to maintain muscle while on a cut. So summer's coming up, a lot of people are trying to lose that body fat that they gained over the winter, and a lot of people might be confused on how to maintain muscle while they're trying to lose body fat. So in today's video, I will discuss 4 points on how to maintain muscle while you're cutting body fat. So one of the most important parts of maintaining muscle while you're on a cut is your protein intake. Protein intake while you're on a cut is so important because you want to prevent your body from using the protein in your muscles and other tissues for energy or for tissue production. So when you're on a bulk, you're consuming so many calories, carbs, and fat that your body does not have to tap into the protein stores in your muscles and other tissues in order to maintain energy and to build other tissue. So when you're on a cut, protein intake is so important because you need to prevent your body from using the protein in your muscle for energy. Your carb and fat intake is so low while you're on a cut that your body will burn through the carbs and fats from your diet and hopefully start to tap into the body fat, not your muscles. If you have a very high body fat percentage, you typically don't have to worry about this because the energy availability in your fat is so high that your body won't tap into the muscle. So your body's going to tap into the store of energy that is the most abundant. So if you're a very high percentage of muscle, lean muscle, and you have a very low body fat percentage, your body is going to tap into the muscle because there is such a higher level of muscle and energy in the muscle than there is in the fat. But if you have a very high fat percentage and very low muscle mass, you don't really have to worry about losing muscle because your body has so much fat on it, it's going to use the fat for energy rather than the protein for energy. So this really does depend on your experience, your goals, where you're at in terms of body fat percentage. Higher body fat percentage, lower muscle mass, you don't have to worry too much about this, but you still do want to increase your protein intake just so you can keep hunger at bay. But if you have a very low body fat percentage and a very high muscle mass percentage, lean body mass, protein is going to become way more important than if you were a much higher body fat percentage. So at least 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. So the next most important part of maintaining muscle while on a cut is the frequency of your workouts. Working out each muscle group once a week while you're cutting is not going to cut it if you want to maintain that muscle. You need to give your body a reason to keep the muscle around instead of using it for energy. If you're only hitting it once a week, you have 6 days during the week where you're not using that muscle, and your body it realizes that, and it says, we don't need this muscle every single day, so we might as well just use it for energy. This also depends on if you're at a high body fat percentage already or if you're at a low body fat percentage. But the frequency of your workouts is going to tell your muscles that, hey, it doesn't matter that we're in a caloric deficit. We need to keep this muscle around in order to support the workouts that we're doing. So you want to be hitting each muscle group at least twice a week in order to keep the muscle around. If you get very sore from your workouts, I would lower the volume, lower the intensity, and maybe do a few less sets, a few less pounds, just so you can make sure that you're hitting each muscle twice a week while you're on that cut. So the next most important part of maintaining muscle while on a cut is the magnitude of your caloric deficit. If you have a very high body fat percentage, you should be able to get away with 1,000 calorie deficit per day and not lose any muscle. But if you're at a very low body fat percentage, you should probably stick with 500 calorie deficit per day just so you can give your body at least almost all of the energy that it needs to maintain. But if you're at an extreme caloric deficit and you're at a low body fat percentage already, your body will have no choice but to use the protein in your muscles for energy. You're really going to push the limits if you're at 1,000 calorie deficit and you already have a low body fat percentage, because your body's just going to run through those fat stores so quickly and it's going to have no choice but to use the protein in your muscles for energy. So if you're at a high body fat percentage, you should have no problem with a 1,000 calorie deficit and maintaining muscle. But if you're already at a low body fat percentage, at most 500 calorie deficit per day is going to be the best range in order to maintain that muscle while you're cutting. So the final piece in maintaining muscle while you're on a cut is to not get too carried away with cardio. A lot of people have trouble doing cardio in the first place, but a lot of people also have trouble holding back on the amount of cardio that they're doing, especially if they're trying to maintain muscle mass in their legs. So if you're doing a lot of cardio and you're doing more than an hour a day of cardio, the muscles in your legs are going to become more resilient to the endurance training rather than the resistance training. And the muscles in your legs are going to become closer to type 1 fibers, which are smaller, more resilient to endurance training. The other thing you got to think about is the cardio could make the caloric deficit way higher than it's supposed to be, and you could start tapping into the protein in your muscles for energy rather than the body fat. This is very highly dependent, again, on how much body fat you already have in your body. If you're 30% body fat, you might get too sore in your legs, but doing any more than an hour of cardio a day is probably going to be a little bit too much, and you might overtrain yourself over time. If you're used to endurance training as it is, then that shouldn't be an issue, but you need to keep your cardio in moderation. A half hour a day to start out, move it up to 45 minutes a day, and then an hour a day towards the end of your cut. But don't get too carried away with cardio.